Now I've had this Honda CRF300L Rally for roughly 6 months or so. This video is not going to be a first thoughts because, well, I put nearly 2,000 miles on this bike. Maybe just shy of that, about 1,900. Probably on this ride I might go above that. Now I'm going to have a full review on it really soon. That's going to be a more classically styled video. A little bit of talking head, a little bit of riding, unlike what I'm doing now in this traffic. But I just wanted to get on the bike and talk to you specifically about how I think the Honda CRF300L and the Rally version are both really good beginner bikes. As you can see, it's autumn here, and this is my favorite time of the year to ride. To get in the hills here and have a little bit of fun. Now, why do I think this is one of the best beginner bikes? A lot of people say, oh, get the Honda CRF300L or the Rally. It's a perfect bike off-road. And to be honest with you, I think it's a really crappy bike off-road. A few little mods will make it a great off-road bike, but the stock tires aren't fit for off-road and the suspension is even worse. We'll talk more about the suspension a little bit later. And it will surprise you what I'll say about it. But yeah, it's not a great bike off-road stock. So if you're buying it for that reason, look elsewhere or expect to make a few modifications. Reason number one, this bike is a great beginner bike, is the obvious. It's ridiculously light. It's easily flickable. You can maneuver this bike around and it's not intimidating at all. You know, I started out on a cruiser, the Iron 883. That sucker's 562 pounds. And, you know, my first, I'd say 3 to 4 months, I was challenged with that heavy bike. Of course, I got used to it and had a lot of fun out of it. Clearly, all the adventures that I've had on this channel. But had I started on a bike like this, with this weight, I think it would have been a shorter learning curve because it's just so maneuverable. It's just so forgiving. So that sun's probably blaring right in your face. Sorry about that. It's too bad because these views are amazing. I think anytime I do a motovlog in this area, I get right here and I say something about how amazing the Driftless region is. Because it is. You guys got to come out here and ride with me. All right, reason number two. There's going to be a 2A and 2B because they're kind of the same. It's this clutch lever and the clutch itself. So the clutch lever, as I squeeze it, it's so dainty. I can't think of a better word right now, but dainty seems like a pretty good word. It's so easy to squeeze. There's no challenge. It's not heavy. It's light. It's easy to squeeze. At first, it annoyed me because I was so used to clutch levers that were much harder to pull in. But this one, freaking easy as all get out. It's super easy. So, you're a new rider, and usually when you're a new rider, you're gripping the handlebars, you're holding on for dear life. Your hands are getting a little fatigued, especially your throttle hand. You might be getting a little bit of numbness. With your clutch hand too, like after a while, it just gets a little numb or a little sore. But having a light clutch lever feel like that is really helpful. Now 2B is the clutch itself. A lot of guys swap it out because they feel it's not enough. It's not what they need, especially off-road. Easy to burn out. That may be true. I haven't experienced that, and I'm pretty rough with this bike. Of course, I've only put, like I said, about 2,000 miles on it. But I abuse the crap out of this bike. I am really pushing this bike to its limits. I'm often high in the rev range. But what's great about this bike is it's a slipper clutch. And I'm not even going to attempt to explain the complications of a slipper clutch or what it does while sitting on the bike here. I'm going to let Joe in the studio explain it, so let's go there.
Okay, I'm going to try and demystify the mysterious. To explain how a slipper clutch works, I'm going to need to delve into what a clutch does and how it does it. Quite simply, the purpose of a clutch is to engage and disengage the engine from the rear wheel. You knew that already, that's what's happening every time you engage and disengage your clutch lever. But it's helpful to have that baseline to understand everything else. A clutch has springs, a pressure plate, steel and friction plates that alternate within the basket, an inner hub, and an outer basket. Make note of the inner hub and the pressure plate because they are key to how a slipper clutch works. Alright, let's delve into how all these parts work together. The outer basket is geared to the crank, so it's turning with the crankshaft. The inner hub is splined to the transmission input shaft. The steel plates have tangs along the inner diameter that engage with the clutch's inner hub, which is fixed to the end of the input shaft via spline. The friction plates have lugs along the outer edge that slot into the outer clutch basket. The springs press the steel plates and friction plates together, coupling the outer clutch basket to the inner hub, thereby transferring the crankshaft's rotation to the input shaft. When you squeeze the clutch lever, the pressure plates disengage, thereby decoupling the inner hub and outer basket so that they are able to spin independently of one another, thus decoupling the engine from the rear wheel. Okay, that gives you a baseline of how a clutch works. What's different on a slipper clutch? The inner hub and the pressure plate on a slipper clutch have ramps built into them. When the clutch pack is clamped together and the rear wheel begins driving the engine under deceleration, such as when you drop a gear, the ramps are forced together and they ride up one another. The pressure plate is then pushed out, reducing clamping force on the steel and friction plates, allowing them to slip past one another. You're not entirely losing pressure, it's slipping just enough to allow engine braking to balance out under deceleration.
Now that you know what a slipper clutch is and what it does, why is it good for a beginner rider? Well, it's very forgiving of mistakes. Like right now, let me drop down a few gears. I'm in third gear here, going about 42 miles an hour. I'm gonna drop it in a second. And you heard the engine braking really high there. If I was going 42 miles an hour and I dropped from third to second on my Iron 883, that wheel would skip. What the slipper clutch does is it slips enough. When that slip occurs, it allows that engine braking to be just at the right amount. Having that clutch slip like that prevents that wheel from skipping, losing traction. Or if you're like going around a corner or at an intersection, you're making a turn and you feel like you gotta shift, you can shift without fear of that wheel skipping or losing traction. That's not something that I would do on my Sportster. It allows for beginners to make mistakes. Now, number 3 is going to be a little bit controversial because I know the biggest complaint about this bike, and some of you are saying it even before I get to it, is the soft suspension. One of the biggest complaints amongst riders who want to ride adventure bikes that are less than average height is that they are too tall. A lot of people say that Honda did that purposefully, made it soft because it's sold in countries where people are a little bit shorter and it's easier for them to ride. Now, I don't have any proof of that, but I'm not going to doubt it either because manufacturers are going to build the bikes in such a way where they're going to sell it most, in the markets where they're going to be selling it most. And that's for this bike in a lot of Asian countries, honestly. So what does that mean for beginner riders here? You know, I've had a video out there that says that I'm a short rider. I like to think that I'm a short rider because before I started riding tall adventure bikes, I was a bit challenged. But I've been told by some people on this channel that a 32-inch seam is not short. Yeah, compared to the entire world and the entire heights of all men, yes, a 32-inch seam is not short. But when it comes to adventure bikes, in my opinion, anything below like a 34 or 35 for adventure bikes is pretty short. So for beginner riders, when they sit on this seat, what happens is that suspension sinks down. It's a 35-inch seat height on this bike. While I can't fully flat foot this bike, when I sit down on it, it's definitely a lot easier with other adventure bikes with 35-inch seat heights. It makes riding this bike so much easier. The last one that I'll talk about is kind of an overall focus of everything that I've mentioned here. As I mentioned, this bike, stock, is not a great off-road bike. This bike, with the way it's set up, it is a perfect city bike. Easy to ride, forgiving of mistakes, amazing gas mileage. Like right now I'm getting about 75 miles to the gallon on this bike. Most, not all, but most new riders are going to be riding in the city. Now I commuted a lot, but I chose mainly to ride where I'm riding now when I first started riding. But most will be riding in the city, and this is a dream bike for the city. Tell me what you think are the best beginner bikes out there. Are there ones better than the Honda CRF300L? Leave your comments down below. Go ahead and do what we all do when we really like the content. Like, subscribe, and share. Thanks for watching. Ride safe out there and keep your wheels rolling the right direction. I'll see you in the next one.